start out. I'm going to go through roll call. So I've got a roll call or a list of people that are signed up for the meeting that Mike supplied for me. I'm going to go through that entire list. I'm just going to run through that real quick and just do roll call. If you guys want to say you're here, then we'll just check you off. That way we can keep track of everybody and we're not, having people talk over each other to say who's in the room. So that's the first thing. Once I go through roll call, if I have missed anybody or if there's somebody who's not on this list, then I'll ask you to sound off if you're in the room. Once roll call is over, I'd ask that everybody mute their phones or mute their computers so that we don't hear any feedback in the background. And then if you have to speak or if you want to ask a question, there's a way to raise your hand and then just unmute while you're speaking. Otherwise, we might get a lot of feedback in the background. My dog's usually barking in the background, so you can cause some disruption there. Voting is going to be done by Mike is going to send out a pop-up that'll come up on your screen when the time comes to vote, and you can click yes or no, and then Mike will be able to give the polling results right away. It takes about, I think Mike said about 30 seconds to get those results. So we'll go through that, and when we do voting, I'm going to actually ask somebody to make a motion and then ask another person to make a second. That way, again, we don't have people talking over each other to try and make motions for approving these items. And then there's public comment at the end. And if you have, I don't know, Mike, have you received any public comment yet?
I have not seen any yet. I'm going to check right now and see if we've received anything. No, not as of right now.
Okay, so, and we're not taking, are we taking public comment through until the end of the meeting? Do you want to take it?
I mean, if we get something in, we'll make sure we read it out.
Okay.
Or if there's, if anybody has anything that, you could add it through the chat as well. That's an option to make sure we get it.
Okay, great. Okay, Mike, thanks for organizing this. Let's see how it goes. I'm gonna go through roll call here real quick. And sorry if I mispronounce anybody's names in advance. Carrie Martin, Bannockburn. Maria Lasday with Bannockburn.
Here.
Adrian Marquez, Beach Park.
Here.
Dale Sands, Deer Park. I am Robert Phillips with the Village of Deerfield. Ann Marin, Fox Lake.
She's here. She just texted me. She's having issues with her microphone.
Okay. Kaylin Noonan, Fox Lake.
I'm here.
Okay. Denise Kafkas, Green Oaks. Heather Gallen, Gurnee. Erica Frabel, Hawthorne Woods.
I'm here.
Michael Talbot, Killdeer.
Heather Galan from Gurnee is here. She responded in the chat.
All right, got it. Karen Dalton Lang, Lake Barrington. Bob Ells, Lake Forest.
Here.
Mike Brown, Lake Zurich. Kevin Carrier, Lake County. Shane Schneider, Lake County. Fred Chung, Libertyville. Paul Kenzior, Libertyville. Clay Johnson, Lindenhurst. Ed Wilms, North Chicago. Leon Rockingham, North Chicago.
This is Ed Wilms. I'm here. I'm not sure if you heard it or not.
All right, I got you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leanne, are you in the room? Okay. Dave Cobain, Round Lake Beach. Here. Mike May, Volo.
Here.
Glenn Ryback, Wadsworth.
Here.
Lincoln Knight, Wakanda. Alex Hosa, IDOT. Tim Dilsaver, Pace Bus.
Here.
Welcome back, Tim.
Thank you very much. Good to be back.
Lauren Platt, Tollway.
I'm here, you guys.
Caitlin Renteria, Metro.
I'm here.
Katie Hurtis, IDOT. James Gross, CMAP. Russell Petrowiak, CMAP.
Here.
Linda Soto, Pace Bus.
Here.
Kama Dobbs, CMAP. Audrey Winnick.
Yep, I'm here from MPC.
Okay. Chris Bouchard, RHMG.
Here.
Dan Brinkman, Gaywalt Hamilton.
I'm here.
Dan Strahan, Gaywalt Hamilton.
Here.
Dwayne O'Laughlin, Steorba Group.
Here.
Jeff Perry, Gaywalt.
Here.
Gordon Smith, CMAP. Jeremy Glover, Metropolitan Planning Council.
He's going to be joining a little bit late.
Okay. Joe Surdam, LCDOT.
Here.
Joel Christel, Civil Tech.
Here.
And John Vanna, Civil Tech.
Good morning. Here.
Great. Thank you, everybody. If you wouldn't mind muting your phones, we'll go ahead and get started with the first item on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes from the January 23rd meeting. And Maria Lasday, would you make a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
And Ann Marin, would you make a second? Heather Galan, would you make a second?
She is muted. Hang on a second. Yes, she makes a second.
Okay. All in favor? I guess we're gonna do this by pop-up, right?
It is not working.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey, Bob,
Yeah.
in the chat, Lee Fell said he's here.
Oh, right, I forgot to call on anybody who, is there anybody else here that we missed?
Yeah, Bob, I didn't want to interrupt you, so I fell and Chris Engineering's here.
Okay,
Glenn Horner. Friend.
anybody else that wants to sound off before we?
Tyler Grau with Stanley Group.
Anybody else? All right, thanks, guys. Sorry, I forgot to call on you. So it looks like the motion carries approval of the minutes. We'll move on to agency reports, and Katie Hurtis is going to do a report from IDOT Bureau of Programming.
During this time. So at IDOT right now, majority of us are working from home. There's still a few departments that are still at the office, but business is being done remotely through email, Zoom, WebEx, teleconference. But we're still doing business as usual. Construction has started. Construction season has begun, and I'm still trying to get my phone transferred to my house. So for right now, if you need to get a hold of me, email is the best way. And Let's see, what else? Your council sheets, not much has changed from them. We're still working on the multi-year program and hoping that will be out soon, but I haven't heard of a release date as of yet. So the highlighted projects are the capital program projects, just so you know that. In the sheets, I think that's how they were last time too. So as far as construction, Illinois 130 or Illinois 43 from US 41 to Pulaski has started. Illinois 176 St. Mary's to US 41 has started, and US 45 Woodlawn to Illinois 83, they have all started. So work is begun along or at Illinois 132 in Lindenhurst and Illinois 131 at Kenosha Road. And we're hoping that a mid-June start date for the US 41 at 132, the railroad, the UP Railroad. So other than that, not too much else is going on. So hopefully we'll have the new program out soon. And other than that, is there any questions?
Hi, Katie. It's Kevin with Lake County DOT. How you doing?
Good.
One question. I think I heard that the 41 at Grand Avenue project is anticipated now to move forward and complete this year. Is that correct?
The railroad.
Yeah.
We are hoping.
Okay.
So we're hoping that it is. We are looking at a mid-June start date, and we're really hoping that it gets done. I mean, it's been dragged out forever, but the agreements, I think all the agreements are signed now, so we're hoping that it will be complete this year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Fingers crossed.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to Alex Oso.
For Bob, Heather Gallen had a question asking if the press release scheduled for 41 RR project is it soon? Like the press release going to be scheduled soon?
You know what? I can check in on that. I am not sure when they're sending that out. I can check. But
okay.
Like I said, for that project, we're hoping mid-June start. So I can check on that for her.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to Alex Hosa with IDOT Bureau of Local Roads.
I don't know if Alex made it on the call.
I didn't hear him say he was here, so.
His sheets were sent out with the meeting packet with the current status of our local program sheets.
All right, we'll catch up with Alex at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
And next up is Lauren Platt with ISTA.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to start with some operations updates. In an effort to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus in the region, the Illinois Tollway temporarily implemented all electronic tolling last month as a precaution to limit the potential spread of coronavirus to customers as well as tollway employees. All Illinois tollway rollways will remain open to traffic. However, mainline toll plazas, automatic toll payment machines, and both our customer call center and in-person customer service centers are currently offline. The tollway's maintenance staff, incident management personnel, and help truck drivers are still on duty to assist travelers, and toll collection has been entirely handled via iPass, EasyPass, and through the tollway's online payment portal. All aspects of basic iPass account management, as well as cash customers' payment of unpaid tolls, can be done on our website at getipass.com. In addition, the tollway is currently holding the issuance of toll violations, as well as the escalation of current notices. I'll move on to some construction updates. Across the nation, highway construction continues as the essential infrastructure activity as per the governor's executive order, and Illinois is no different. The tollway is moving forward with scheduled construction projects as well as roadway maintenance and repair work system-wide. Safety is still our #1 priority, though, during this difficult time, and the tollway is working with contractors to ensure the proper safety precautions are being taken to protect workers engaged in outdoor construction activities along our system. Tollway contractors and consultants continuing their work are always required to have comprehensive safety plans in place, and those plans have been updated to account for the safety precautions during the COVID-19 pandemic. As any vendor or contractor unable to continue to provide services due to the impacts of the pandemic are not required to do so at this time. Finally, I want to hit on some Lake County construction projects for the group. The Eden Spur Tollway. In 2020, the tollway is completing reconstruction of the Eden Spur in both directions between the Union Pacific Railroad and Eden's Expressway. This year, work will also include replacing the Fingston Road Bridge over the Eden Spurway. When complete, the new Fingston Road Bridge will feature a wider bridge deck to accommodate vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists traveling over. So an active study we do have, the tollway plans to reconstruct and widen the Stern School Road Bridge over the Tri-State Tollway, and the tollway anticipates advertising the construction contract later this spring. If you have any questions, again, email is the easiest way to reach me. That is lplatt, L-P as in Paul, L-A-T-T @getipass.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Does anybody have any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to the CMAP report. Mary Weber.
Actually going to be Russell Petroviak.
Okay.
So CMAP, as if you don't already know, just like everybody else, everybody's working remotely. So our offices, which are in the Willis Tower, are closed for the foreseeable future. So we've been having all of our meetings that we do, such as Council of Mayors, Transportation Committee, etc., remotely using. Typically, we use Microsoft Teams or Webinar or WebEx, whatever it might be. I don't think we've used Zoom like you guys are using today. Everything so far has been able to be done remotely, so there are no delays. We're able to make tip changes. We're able to still do CMAC and STP and the shared fund and all that. All is still moving forward unabated. The Council of Mayors recently met and we discussed the projects for using STP funds that are targeting the June letting. We feel that the region has enough money to cover the projects that are currently targeting the June letting. As a result, we don't have to, there had been some discussions about maybe taking money from 21 and moving that into 20 to help fill a gap, but we don't feel that we need to do that at this moment. So that being said, we actually received sometime in the winter, January, I believe it was, or February, updated allocation amounts from IDOT for STP. And we are revising the marks, and we just sent those out yesterday to the PLs. Lake County is going to be getting an extra $1.6 million, I think it was, Mike, to program with in 21. So I know you guys have a large grandfathering program going on, so that'll help a little bit. So that's a positive thing. The other thing is that some of our meetings, unless they're really important, so to speak, or votes are being taken that are of critical concern, we're kind of postponing those for the time being. That includes the STP Project Selection Committee that was supposed to meet in April. That meeting was postponed. I believe CMAC and TAP is still occurring. And we do have 2 things out for public comment right now. So IDOT is building some new interchanges on I-55 near the Joliet area in Will County. And because of that, we are actually amending our long-range transportation plan. So a plan amendment is kind of a big deal in the region, a big deal at CMAP. So the plan amendments that have been proposed by IDOT are out for public comment right now. I believe the deadline is May 11th. For public comment, and our regular conformity amendments, which have to do with our air quality in the region, is also out at the same time for public comment, and that'll also close on May 11th. So that's what I have for CMAP. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at this time. Okay, doesn't appear that there is any.
No questions. Thanks, Russell. We'll move on to, we're actually going to backtrack over to back to Alex Hosta, who is now here and would like to give his report. Alex? Alex, are you there?
He said he could hear us. I don't know if he's muted.
Okay, we'll move on. If he comes in the room, then we'll get back to him. Andy Plummer's here with the RTA report.
No report from the RTA today.
No report. Got it. Rick Mack with Metra. Is Rick here?
No, you just have me today.
Okay, Caitlin. Can you give us the report, please?
Sure. So, like many of us, my report's going to revolve around COVID-19. I'm going to backtrack a little bit to the start of all this in March. When we started to see decline in ridership and people starting to work from home, we decided to make a small gesture and just refund fees associated with any returns to monthly tickets. It is a small gesture, but we're hoping that it will leave some strain on our riders that they're feeling right now. As time progressed and ridership dropped, Metra had to adjust schedules on all of our lines. We're also running with restricted car access. Safety is always our primary goal. And with this new procedure, we're hoping it limits opportunities for our train crews to be potentially exposed to COVID-19 as well as our riders. And then we always continue to ensure that our passengers safely boarding and disembarking from the trains at all times, even with this new procedure. The updates to the schedules can be found on our website, metrorail.com, if you're looking for a specific line. Quick update on ridership itself. Our ridership has fallen by approximately 97%. It's predicted by the RTA that our fare revenue and sales tax receipt will fall by more than $300 million over the next 2 years. We did receive aid through the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Stimulus Act. So the financial help will or should be able to cover losses for 2020, but unfortunately, we expect to see losses through 2021, which could reach over $500 million through December of 2021. A little bit of good news through all this, though. We are still moving forward with our 2020 construction plans. And with fewer trains operating on our system, we're able to get a head start on our construction projects. So we had several major projects that began at the start of April. And again, that list is on our website if you're curious to see the full construction program for 2020. Any questions?
Thank you. We'll move on to PACE report by Mary Donner.
Good morning, everybody. This is Tim Dilsaver. I'd like to thank Director Soto and Mary Donner for filling in for me while I was away. It's great to be back. And my report, too, will also be COVID-19 specific this morning. Ridership on fixed route is down 67%. And ADA ridership is down 75% over the same time period last year. PACE buses have always been cleaned after every day of service. In addition to this cleaning, buses are wiped down daily with a disinfectant. PACE suspended fares for medical workers and first responders on March 30th. As of April 9th, all passengers, including ADA passengers, will ride free until the governor's stay-at-home order has been lifted. Routes serving certain medical centers and other Amazon locations have required additional buses for the purpose of social distancing. 54 PACE commuter routes and shuttle bugs were suspended until further notice beginning April 13th due to extremely low ridership. I mean, extremely low ridership. Here are some recent changes regarding operator and passenger safety. All passengers board and alight through the rear door. Social distancing is required on all buses. A transportation barrier curtain has been installed at the driver position for greater protection of our operators. 88 trips are scheduled for one passenger and will continue until governor's stay-at-home order is lifted. On April 16th, PACE operators sounded their horns at 2 p.m. as a sign of solidarity with 35 other transit agencies across the country for our employees and other essential workers. Local participation also included Metra, CTA, and Amtrak. And that's my report. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, thank you.
This
Go
is
ahead.
Director Soto from PACE. I just want to add, I want to give a quick shout out to WRLR, which is Lake County FM low frequency station. You can find it at 98.3. You can also stream it through your video or Facebook online. They invited PACE to be on their show a couple weeks ago, explaining what transit services were available, what we were doing to adapt to the COVID-19, and we could relay what we're doing as far as with staff and keeping our buses clean and such. And so it's a great way to get news out to the community. So I encourage everyone to utilize WRLR. It's a great way to get, another way to get word out to the community. Obviously, we want to discourage using mass transit, but we're an essential service. And as you all know, there's many workers that this is their only option for them. And that's particularly true with the bus routes. And as Tim said, even though we've, dropped service in many places, there are routes where we've actually added buses to get these essential workers, whether it's medical professional, cleaning crew, people for Amazon, getting them to work and adding extra buses for that social distancing. So thank you to WRLR, and I hope you all will utilize them.
Thanks, Linda. Anybody else have comments or questions for PACE? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the functional classification requests. We have one from the city of Lake Forest today. Mike?
Yeah, so the city of Lake Forest has submitted a functional classification request for Wesley Road. The request is to reclassify Wesley Road from US 41 on the east, west to Waukegan Road, Illinois 43 on the west. Their request is to change the functional classification of this road from a local street to a minor collector. It's approximately just under 1 mile, and the ADT is just over 2,100. Wesley Road is functions as a collector route for 4 residential subdivisions between US 41 and Waukegan Road. And Lake Forest High School's West Campus and athletic fields are located at Wesley Road and Waukegan Road on the west end. And West Skokie Nature Preserve is located on Wesley Road, just west of Wallace Road. This request does meet the recommended spacing and traffic volume recommendations from FHWA and IDOT. I know that Bob Ells from Lake Forest is also in the meeting here if there are additional questions. And so we are seeking approval today to recommend that the full council approves the resolution.
Does anybody have questions? Any questions? I'm going to call on Mike Brown to make a motion for approval.
I don't know if we have Mike with us.
Okay. How about Ed Wilms? Ed, can you make a motion for approval? Is Ed left the room? I don't know.
It looks like he's muted. There we go.
Ed, are you there?
Yeah.
All right. Would you like to make a motion for approval?
I will make the motion for approval, yes.
Thank you. And I'll call on Mayor Ryback to second that motion. Mayor, would you like to second that motion?
I'd like to second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Will we, Mike, is the voting, is the voting ready for,
It is not working. It
Not
looks
working.
like, because I logged in from my iPad to check that everything was working, it has disabled the polling
okay.
before the meeting.
So how about, we just asked for, then everybody, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And are there any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Great. Okay, Mike, we'll move on to the Lake County STP program.
All right. So a couple things to give everybody updates on. At our last meeting, we talked about how we were going to, the region had run out of programming authority after the March letting for the STP program. So we did have 2 projects in our 2020 council program that were obligated this year. Buffalo Grove Stage 1 of their Brandywine and Thompson project, and the Phase 2 engineering of Vernon Hills Lakeview Parkway project. All the other projects that are on our list for 2020 that are highlighted on the sheet on the screen were forced to be pushed out of 2020 and will need to be grandfathered into our new program. So just wanted to give everybody an update on that. And then we can move into the 2021 marks. And as Russell from CMAP mentioned, I kind of want to give everybody a background of what's happened behind the scenes since our last meetings. So it wasn't quite as simple as, you know, the region just ran out of money as March. There was a small amount of money that was left over after the March letting. It was about $13-ish million. But the region did not have a process for selecting which projects on the April letting could get those funds, because there was about $30 million worth of projects on the April letting. So we didn't have enough funding left in the region to cover all of the projects, and we didn't have a process in place to actually pick which projects should get those funds for the limited amount we had. So towards the end of February, CMAP started discussions with the planning liaisons about working to create a process. And about the same time, IDOT issued a circular letter giving the region our STP funding marks for fiscal year 2021. And those funding marks came in a little bit higher than we had previously been expecting. That was due to some previous congressional appropriations through the FAST Act. They got passed down through IDOT's formula for how the funds get to the region. And so our 2021 numbers were a little bit higher. But because IDOT's fiscal year starts July 1st, in trying to do everything they could to fund every project that the region had, CMAP discussed with the planning liaisons using that new additional funding that we had not been expecting for the June letting of 2020. Because IDOT's fiscal year starts July 1, we could make the timing work. We had a meeting with the planning liaisons in February, and we were trying to determine should that money, that new additional money, be spent in June in 2020 or be spent in 2021. And then how do we go about picking projects for the limited funds that we would have for the June letting. CMAP kind of laid out 3 options. The first was to fund the most expensive projects in the region. remember, we don't have a process for picking when there aren't enough funds to cover an entire letting. So one of the options that they discussed was the most expensive projects, with the logic being that they're the most regional, the most complex. Another option would be to fund the least expensive projects first, with the argument being that you would get the most projects done. And then a third option that seemed to have the most support amongst the planning liaisons in the region was that the councils who have spent the least amount of money over the last 2.5 years while we've been in this transition period, this regional fiscal constraint, would be prioritized so that they would get be first in line for that additional funding. In all three of those options, the two projects that we had in Lake County targeting the April letting didn't get funded. They fall right in the middle of the cost. So the most expensive projects, the region ran out of money first before we got to ours. Same with the least expensive projects. And outside of the city of Chicago, we have spent the most money over the last 2.5 years, nearly $80 million. So we are not first in line to get additional funding if that's the priority. As it turned out, the list of projects that were available for June, sort of through attrition, missing IDOT deadlines, not getting design approval or right-of-way clearances, and other factors that delay a project. Enough projects slipped out of the June letting so that the region did have enough funding to cover the June letting without having to tap into that new additional money that IDOT had added through their circular letter. So what that means for us is that next year in 2021, we are going to get about $1.2 million of additional funding that we previously had not been planning on. So instead of $8.1 million next year, our mark is just over $9.3 million. So it definitely helps our program, but we have a lot of projects to be grandfathered, and we will get into that shortly. So I did want to let everybody know that, CMAP, IDOT, FHWA, a lot of folks, nobody just threw up their hands and said, we're out of money, let's wait till January. There's been a lot of work going on, a lot of meetings going on behind the scenes, trying to be as creative as possible to get projects funded. I think this worked out pretty well for everybody. All the councils are going to see a little bit of money next year. We're going to see about $1.2 million, which will definitely help our new program. So if there are questions, I'll stop here and see if there are questions.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
This is Alex. I'm back here. Sorry, I had technicality here. My wife just helped me out how to get back to you guys, but I'm around.
Hey, Alex. All right. You want to jump back to Alex's status sheets real quick?
Yep, that sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
All right.
If you guys can hear me now.
We can hear you. And we've got your sheets up on the screen.
Sorry about that. I tried. I can hear you guys, but I tried. When you mentioned my name, I said here. I was here, and I couldn't. And finally, my wife helped me out with this one. Sorry about that.
We'll forgive you.
Thank you. I hope all of you guys are well through these bad times, and hopefully these things will go away from here soon. To go back to the agenda, I do have 4 items to be actually revised. The first one, it was in the agenda item number 5, Grand Township. I do have new design approval for 10/15/2020. The second one, item number 6, which is the Green Oaks Bridge. The new estimated design approval will be June 30th this year. The third one, it is item number 15, Lake County's Butterfield Road at Allenton. The new estimated design approval May 15 this year. The last one I do have, item number 20, which is Lake Forest, Lake Road Bridge. The new estimated design approval will be July 15 this year. And that's all what I have. And if anybody needs to contact me, you can email me if you need any PDR project to be reviewed. Just email it to me as PDF. We've been really good here reviewing everything by emails and reply back to the local agency and their consultants very quick for ESRs or PDRs or agreements or anything you need. Just email us and we can reply back to you very quick. And if you have any questions in Lake County, email me and we'll run with it from here. And the last thing I have, Bob, one more thing.
Yeah.
If you have a PDR, since you guys don't go to the local agency, go to board meeting, we do accept electronic signatures. You don't have to go to the board meetings. They can sign it and send it to us, and we can give you design approval that way. And if you have any MFT questions, you are welcome to call anytime. The same thing, you don't have board meetings. You can just send us the contract signed electronically, and we can approve it and send you back. It says approved, and you can go ahead and let the contractor start working. That's for the MFT projects, for the local agencies. And that's all what I have. And if you have any questions, please email me. If I need to call anyone, I'll give you my cell phone, and I can contact the consultant too, or the local agency using my cell phone. And that's all what I have. Anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, well, Mike's got an update on the call for projects.
Yeah, so just wanted to make everyone aware that, we did send out numbers of emails, but applications for our STP call for projects, we extended the deadline from March 30th to May 1st. Given the pandemic, especially at the end of March, everyone had much more important things going on. So we are receiving applications. Just wanted to remind everyone that applications are due May 1st at 5 p.m. So please send those in via email. They can go to lccom@lakecountyil.gov. I also get them if they come directly to me, that works too. And we will work to get all of these scored. So to give a brief summary of where we're at to date, I mentioned that, we did have quite a number of projects that are being grandfathered into our new program. Those total $36.9 million worth of grandfathered projects. And then in the call for projects, we have received a total so far, as of yesterday afternoon, of 26 applications from 13 different municipalities, with a total of just over $41 million in requests. 14 of the applications are in the roadways and intersections category. Those total about just over $33 million worth of federal funding requests. The average request is just over $2 million in that category. And we have 12 applications for projects in the pavement preservation category. Just under $8 million worth of requests in pavement preservation projects. The average funding request is about $725,000 right now. So that's just kind of a brief summary of where we are to date. But then I did want to discuss with everyone how we're going to go about building out our 5-year program, because there are some constraints that we have for building that new program. So I'm going to run through these slides very quickly. Hopefully everyone can see the screen. I know you can switch the view from speaker view, gallery view, and you can see the shared screen. These slides are, many of you have seen them before. we talked through these in our pre-call for projects workshop that we did. So our applications are now due May 1st. We're going to be, Joe Serdam and myself are going to be scoring these June 11th ahead of our June 18th Transportation Committee meeting. We will send out a staff recommended program in July. The plan is to put those out to public comment. In August, the Transportation Committee and full council will meet to review any public comment and approve our program. And we can then get those projects into CMAP's TIP. So everything that gets applied for will be scored and ranked. We have a pavement preservation category and a roadways and intersections category. And then all projects will be sorted by rank and score. And we will take the two lists and combine them into a single scoring system. So we're going to give everybody a spreadsheet that shows every single project and every single scoring category and how they scored. You'll be able to see for both roadways and intersections projects, pavement preservation projects, how each project scored and ranked. And then they'll be combined into a single list. For our active program, it's the 5 years of the program. It has to be fiscally constrained every year and needs to be in CMAP's TIP. The first year is considered the current year, and we have to spend our money every year or we will lose it. The next 4 years are considered the out years. And then the things we can't fit into our active program can go onto a contingency list. We will look to move those into our active program if other projects are slipping out based on their rank, but it's not a guarantee of federal funding. And then that list will expire at our next call for projects in 2 years. If projects have not been moved to the active program, they'll need to reapply. So getting into sort of our methodology for building our council program, we have to maintain fiscal constraint. Our grandfathered projects will be added based on their current schedule. New projects will be based on their rank. We will add projects where they were requested it until fiscal constraint doesn't allow us to. Then we will look to move to another year, but we'll discuss that with project sponsors to make sure that if their project is moved to a different year, that's still okay with them. We need to be able to fit all phases of a project into our active program for it to be programmed. What we're trying to avoid by this is funding a project's engineering phases without having construction in our program. Once the engineering agreements are executed, it starts a 10-year clock. And if you do not get the project to construction within 10 years, you have to pay back those federal funds for engineering. And we don't want to set up communities to be in a position to have to pay back federal funds. So if we can't fit an entire project in the active program, it can be considered for the contingency list. And the projects have to be able to be completed within the 5-year window. And then if projects need to go, say, get funding from the SDP shared fund or something else, we won't put them in the first 2 years of the active program because we want to make sure that they have all their funding in place. So I'm going to switch real quick over to a spreadsheet that shows how we're going to build our program out. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I want everybody to kind of get an idea of how we're building this. So every project is a puzzle piece. We have our council marks which are over here on the right-hand side of this spreadsheet. So I mentioned earlier that we're now going to have about $9.3 million next year. And then our marks do go down from there. So we have a total of about $39.9 million available. Between our grandfathered projects and our new project applications, we're at about $79 million worth of requests. So we're going to have a robust contingency list. We're obviously not going to be able to fit everyone's project in here. But I did want to show kind of the process of how we're going to do this. So these first three projects in here are the projects that we had in our council program that were targeting the April letting and a phase 2 engineering that was targeting May. So they were the first projects that were sort of ready to go when the region ran out of money. So if we move those into 2021, the balance of our program is we have about $5.3 million left in 2021. Then things start to get more complicated. The next three projects in the darker green on the screen, we're all targeting the November letting. So because we have not ranked these projects, they're being grandfathered into our program, we need a way to distinguish between projects that we're targeting the same letting. So we plan to use project readiness for that. Things that we will use are, does the project need right-of-way? When did they start their phase 2 engineering? Because not every project started on the same day or even the same month. So we will have to work through the process of moving these phases in and filling as much as we can in each year. When we get to a point where we can't fit another project from the grandfathered list, we can look to the new applications by rank order and see is there something in there that we can fit. And we can't be over-programmed in each year. We can be under-programmed a little bit. The active program management rules allow us to carry over a small amount of funding from one year to the next if we have a project at the beginning of that next year that can use it. So, we have some I think difficult decisions to come through as we build our program. We don't have a lot of room for new projects, but we will have some room, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure we get all of these projects, especially the grandfathered projects, into our active program right now, and then we'll see how the active program management works. If those projects slip, we will have projects ready to go on our contingency list. So the projects in the blue at the bottom of the screen are the requested amounts from our call for projects. The darker blue at the top are the resurfacing projects. The lighter blue at the bottom are the roadways and intersection projects. And as you can see, most project sponsors are looking for funding between 2021 and 2023. So we should have projects that are ready to go that we can spend all of our money should something slip out of our council program. So with that, I will see if there are questions about how we're going to go about building the program. So when we put out our meeting materials for June, we will give everyone the materials that will go out will show each project, how it scored in each various category, a spreadsheet that shows how all of the new projects ranked, and then we will have that spreadsheet that I just showed of building a program, and we will show where all the projects requested funding and where we can actually fit it into our program. So I'll stop there and see if there are questions. Hearing none.
So if there are no questions, then we'll move on. Thank you, Mike. Very detailed report. Thanks for putting all that together. We'll move on to Metropolitan Planning Council presentation.
Hello, this is Jeremy Glover from the Metropolitan Planning Council. I am the Transportation Associate there, and me along with my colleague Audrey Wenink, the Director of Transportation, who's also on the call, head up all of the transportation-related efforts at MPC. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, I imagine you probably all are, but we're a 85-year-old nonprofit, nonpartisan planning and policy organization working in the greater Chicago region on issues like housing, community development, water management, and transportation, along with a host of other things. So just wanted to thank Mike for putting us on the agenda, and thank you all for having us here today to talk about this report that we released last year. It's on a topic that we believe is really important to think about at the local level, which is mobility for people of all ages and abilities, with a particular focus on seniors and people with disabilities. To develop this report, we talked to over 100 people from a wide range of backgrounds, including many people with disabilities, users of the system, many operators who are managing the system. We also had a technical advisory group of transportation professionals, researchers, and disability advocates who helped us take all the input that we got from our focus groups and interviews and develop a set of 32 recommendations that will help move our region towards universal mobility. Next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. I forgot there were animations. But what exactly do we mean by universal mobility? This is a concept that combines several ideas together. Universal design is a principle from design and architecture that states that buildings, landscapes, and products and information must be designed so that it can be accessed, understood, and used to the greatest extent possible by all people, regardless of their age or disability. Community mobility is a term used in occupational therapy that stresses the importance of mobility for someone to live a fully engaged lifestyle. Staying healthy or fully recovering from an injury or illness is not possible if you don't have a level of mobility that allows you to reach everything you need in your community. Essential goods and services, family and friends, as well as recreational opportunities. So universal mobility takes the principles of universal design and combines them with that understanding of mobility as an essential component of well-being. And for MPC, universal mobility is also the belief that mobility is a human right and that access to high quality, accessible transportation is fundamental to exercising that right. Next slide. So how many people does this issue actually impact? As a region as a whole, about 10% of people self-report having a disability, but if you look at this graph, it shows how the likelihood of disability greatly increases with age. By 65, about a third of people will experience a disability. At 75 and over, it's about 50% of people have a self-reported disability. And that doesn't even include everyone who will experience a temporary disability at some point in their life, like a broken foot, knee surgery, illness that will impact your mobility and will probably mean that you can't drive for some period of time. On top of that, about 30% of the population already doesn't drive within the greater region. So we really need to be accommodating all these people in our transportation system. Our region also is aging. CMAP projects that a large increase in the number of seniors will cause the median age of the region to increase from 35 in 2010 to 39.4 in 2050. Doesn't sound like a big jump, but it actually is a pretty significant change. More seniors most likely means more people with disabilities and more people with limited mobility. But I think the key takeaway here is that virtually all of us will experience a disability at some point in our lives, either personally or as a caretaker. And our transportation system needs to work for people at all stages of life. Next slide, please. It's also a major economic component to transportation challenges faced by people with disabilities. People with disabilities are much more likely to be unemployed, and those who do work are much more likely to have part-time jobs than people without disabilities. People with disabilities live in households with lower incomes. Just over half of working age people with disabilities live in households with a median income of $25,000 or less. That's in this region. People with disabilities are less likely to have vehicles because of income or because of their disability doesn't allow them to drive. All these factors mean that people with disabilities are more reliant on social services. Improving mobility would allow for a much greater amount of self-sufficiency and allow people with disabilities to fully participate in the local economy, which is something that everyone we talk to agreed is hugely important to the disability community. Next slide. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time just briefly touching on kind of the existing state of accessible transit services in our region. Everyone's familiar with the fixed route system, CTA, PACE, and Metra, but there's an entire secondary system of services that most of you, I'm sure everyone on this call knows about as well, that specifically serves seniors and people with disabilities. This includes ADA paratransit, which is federally required and mirrors existing fixed route corridors, non-ADA paratransit dial-a-ride services at the county or municipal level, and PACE on-demand service, which is a demand response service in areas that are not quite dense enough for fixed route, and Lake County has a few of those. As you can see on this map, I think the main concept that this map is trying to illustrate is that we have a really fractured system at the regional level. There's at least 50 different separate services operating. Each of these services was established to address a very specific transportation need in a very specific community, and were rarely planned or operated in a coordinated way. And as a result, most have different rules over who's eligible to ride, what kind of trips they can take, how much it costs when it runs. So from a rider's perspective, understanding and using these services can be very difficult, and trying to cross the arbitrary boundaries from one jurisdiction to another where there are separate services is sometimes impossible, even when you're only going a very short distance from, say, one town over to the next town. Next slide. We also did an analysis of a region sidewalk network using a new data set provided by CMAP, specifically looking at how sidewalk availability matches up with public transit. This is just a small snippet of the overall region. This is an area just to the west of O'Hare. Green represents roads with a sidewalk on both sides. Orange segments have a sidewalk on one side, and red segments have no sidewalks at all. And then the yellow dots are PACE bus stops. You can see the fractured nature of the network and how big of a barrier that would be to people living in those surrounding residential communities, or people who are trying to access that commercial industrial area using public transit. And we found overall that only 1% of PACE bus stops in the region have a complete network of sidewalks on the street, all streets within a half mile of the stop. That means even if there's a route nearby, many people won't be able to get to the route. And that means that many people with disabilities who might want to ride the bus will be forced to use door-to-door or corner-to-corner paratransit services, which require advanced reservations and are a lot more costly to operate. You could do a similar analysis of other facilities, not just bus stops, grocery stores, senior centers, and you'd find very similar results in terms of the connectivity of the overall sidewalk network. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, the report has 32 recommendations on how we can start to tackle some of these problems. They're segmented into kind of 8 categories, and I'll give a kind of a brief overview of the type of things that are addressed in each category, and then dig a little bit deeper into a handful of recommendations that we think are most applicable to planners at the municipal level. So the first bucket is improving service coordination. So this is thinking about how can we better coordinate our existing services to provide more convenient, reliable, and efficient service to people as they travel through the region and across jurisdictions. So getting back to that kind of fractured map that I just showed. Second area, unlocking transportation options with more information. So how can we create better resources that give people the information they need when they need it, that will empower them to confidently and safely use any mode of transportation that's available. Engaging private sector transportation services. So ride-hailing companies like Uber and Lyft have really dramatically changed mobility in a relatively short amount of time. How can we leverage those services in a way that is a net benefit to people with disabilities? Another area is upgrading technology to improve the customer experience. There are many new technology solutions that can help us provide better transportation service, reduce the barriers between services, and give us better data to plan with. Improving the final steps of a journey. Oftentimes, the biggest barrier to a trip is that first or last 100 feet. Pedestrian infrastructure is the bedrock of a transportation system, and it's really important for communities to understand their needs and work to have a plan to work to address gaps. The next area, upgrading the accessibility of the fixed route system. We have we're blessed in this region to have an amazing fixed route system. There are regions around the country spending billions and billions to create what we already have. But there are shortcomings. Many people with disabilities we talked to said they would prefer to use the fixed route system because it's faster, more reliable, and more flexible, but there are structural barriers in place that are preventing them from doing that. Another area, funding. Of course, we can't talk about infrastructure without talking about funding. We have limited money, of course, for infrastructure improvements and for operating costs of all these services. We need to be smarter with the money we have and consider targeted options to generate new revenues. Lastly, empowering people with disabilities and their allies to advocate. Really, we are encouraging all groups to really engage and empower the disability community and older adults to advocate for those changes that will improve their mobility. This is a group of people that have an incredible wealth of knowledge in terms of the improvements that are needed already. And the disability community has a saying, nothing about us without us. That's something that MPC has really tried to take heart throughout this whole process, take to heart, and we really encourage everyone to do the same. Next slide. So now just dive into a couple recommendations in a little more detail. The reports, and I should acknowledge too, before I go any further, Lake County last year released their own paratransit market study, really great documents. We feel that our recommendations here, a lot of our recommendations here really gel well with the recommendations and findings in that report. And would really like to coordinate with Lake County DOT and Lake County communities to see how we can help with implementing that plan. But the top recommendation from our report is to establish a council of regional mobility coordinators, one for each county, and that would work collectively as a group to facilitate service across the entire region. I know this is something that Lake County has already been talking about, thinking about where a position like that would live within county governance structure. At the county level, a mobility coordinator could help transportation services be better aligned to optimize operations and funding to provide more consistent and effective service. We really encourage people at the local level to advocate for this at whatever agency in their county manages accessible transportation services. In some counties it's DOT, in some counties it's Health and Human Services. There's a variety of places where paratransit services might live. In lieu of a regional coordinator, there's also a lot of municipalities and townships. I'm sure many folks on this call run their own township or municipal dial-a-ride service, van pool service. We really encourage folks to look for opportunities to partner with their neighboring communities to either jointly operate a service or to better coordinate their separate services. Next slide. So this is an actual photo of a bus stop in the Chicago region. We call it the Bus Stop Island. PACE has gone to a great effort to ensure that all buses can accommodate people with wheelchairs and people with a range of mobility needs. And in this case, they've gone to a great effort to provide a shelter on a concrete pad at the bus stop. But the municipality hasn't provided any sidewalks connecting to the bus stop. So this pretty much prevents any safe and meaningful access to a lot of people with disabilities, people who are using a wheelchair or other mobility devices. So municipalities have a lot of control over their local pedestrian infrastructure. And we are recommending that local planners revisit their ADA transition plans, or if they don't have a transition plan, beginning that process by conducting an accessibility self-assessment, because we can't improve walkability until we know the extent of the problem. A lot of municipalities are also creating for the first time complete streets plans, especially now that they can get some extra points from CMAP in the STP shared funds, application process. We think this is a really great opportunity when you're thinking about those complete streets issues to think about strategic improvements to your pedestrian infrastructure network that will connect important destinations together with a high quality network of accessible sidewalks. Next slide. Similarly, municipalities can do a lot to improve access and usability of the fixed route system that is in their communities. Obviously, throughout the region, there's a wide range of fixed route services, but for areas that do have bus and rail, municipalities can control and should be thinking about things like bus shelters and seating at stations and transfer points, which will make the fixed route system more comfortable and inviting, and can really shift riders away from those more expensive on-demand services onto the fixed route system. Local government can also use their regulatory power to make sure land uses are transit supportive, such as encouraging policies to require accessible and affordable housing near transit, and requiring developments to have a pedestrian-friendly site design. This is not only will that benefit people with disabilities, but it will really benefit everyone. Next slide. This is just a top-line presentation, really, of the report. There are a total of 32 recommendations. I probably hit about 5 or 6 of them. We encourage you to go to our website at the address shown to download the full report. There is an executive summary that's about just under 20 pages, and then there's a longer version that goes into a lot of detail on each of these recommendations and provides links to resources, case studies of other areas that are doing work in this in accessibility. Once you look over the strategies, we would be happy to hear from you which strategies you want to work on, or that you have interest in, or that you know where work is already being done, or where you know there's technical assistance needs. Please circle back with us. We'd love to be a resource. For example, we've already doing some work on a lot of these areas. We've developed a list of grant funding opportunities for communities where you can get funding for pedestrian ADA access to transit projects. We'd be happy to share that with you. We're also finishing work on the status of ADA transition plans in the region. We'll have a report we can share with folks in a couple of weeks on that. And then we're hoping to work with regional planning entities to develop some technical assistance resources to help communities think about transition planning. My email's here. There's a typo. It's jglover, JGLOVER @metroplanning.org. And then, yeah, if we have time, we would love to hear from you guys on what you're hearing from your residents about accessibility needs for transportation. What, if any of this is resonating with you, what you think might be missing, and just any thoughts generally. Thank you so much for your time.
For me, does anybody have questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Mike, is there any other business?
Just a couple things that I want to highlight for people. These were in the council email that went out with our meeting materials at the bottom, but there are some grant funding opportunities out there right now. The first is the DCEO, State Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, has put out 3 different notice of funding opportunities as part of the capital bill. So there are links to all 3 of those in the email that went out to everybody. They're also have been in CMAP's emails as well. USDOT has a notice of funding opportunity through, I believe, May 18th for build grants. They used to be called Tiger grants. Now they're called build grants. They can be used for a variety of different big infrastructure projects. The caveat is that I believe you have 3 years to get that money spent. So probably have to be pretty far along in your project. IDOT also has a call for projects for local HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program, safety projects. They have extended the deadline for when applications are due, and that is also in our council email and the notice about it as well. And then the last thing that I just wanted to mention is there is a lot of talk going on about a stimulus package being passed in Congress in response to COVID-19 and perhaps the next package after what was passed yesterday by the Senate, and the House today is looking to pass some small business and hospital funding. You know, the discussion has been that the next package may be a infrastructure package. For those who remember the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, ARRA, from 2008, 2009, the way that that program worked, the additional funding flowed through the Council of Mayors like STP funds, but we had 12 months to spend the money. I was down in Will County at the time. We did a call for projects separately. Obviously, we're just wrapping up a call for projects right now, so we probably have a pretty good list of projects in the region that are federally eligible. But that doesn't mean that's the only list. So if your community has projects that are in the federal process, federal pipeline being processed as federally eligible, and especially those that could be get to a letting within 12 to 18 months, compiling a list of those projects will be very helpful. As we start to hear any developments about what a potential stimulus may look like, we will obviously send that out to all of our communities. But start thinking about any projects that you have in case something does come up, so we can respond quickly and try to take advantage of whatever may come out there. We're not sure what it'll look like, but last time we know we had about a year to spend the money. It had to follow all the federal rules and federal process, and it came through the council. So we just want to be prepared in case something like that were to happen again. So with that, I have not seen any additional public comment come in. I'm going to just check and make sure that there's nothing else. Nope, there's no other public comment that has come in.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike. So the next full council meeting is on May 7th, right, Mike?
That's correct. The full council meeting is scheduled for May 7th. We are going to plan to have that virtually in this format as well. While the governor hasn't officially extended the stay-at-home order, he was discussing that yesterday at his press conference, that it is likely to be extended, and regardless, I doubt we are going to have the ability to have a large group meeting in the near term. So the plan will be to hold that virtually as well.
Good.
Real quick, if you don't mind, this is Mayor Rockingham. I would stay tuned. The governor is supposed to make a statement today at 2:30 regarding that. So I would just say take a listen, and I think that'll get us in the direction of where things are going to stand, shortly.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. That's one of the reasons I was a little late. I apologize. I was actually on a call with the governor's staff. So 2:30 today, we'll be making an announcement.
Thank you. Okay, the next meeting for Transportation Committee is on June 18th, and at this time, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.